different things. What I'm saying is violence in prison is a major problem, and I don't deny that an added layer of complexity is in which prison should a trans person be. I don't pretend to have the answer in all cases. I don't.
Well, our favorite slithery progressive, David Pakman, is back doing his best to avoid answering some, what to most people are actually very simple questions. And he's got the boys from the Trigonometry podcast here, and they just asked, they're asking a very simple question, as you can understand, as you can probably figure out. It's about trans women or trans people or trans ideology. And immediately David Pakman goes into, slithery, snaky, trying to get out of it mode. He doesn't want to be pinned down on such a complicated and nuanced issue. Let's see how this goes.
Relations and all the stuff to do with BLM and all of that. And number 3, as of late, these sort of big toxic issues is, of course, the trans issue.
Okay, so sure, those are 3 issues, yes.
Yeah, yeah. I was going somewhere with that. I just wanted to get confirmation that
those are issues that exist, absolutely.
Those are issues that exist. And what I am asserting to you is there are quite a lot of people, certainly here in the UK, and I know that in America it's the same in some circles, that feel very strongly about those issues, and they feel that the mainstream conversation about those issues is dishonest. So if we start in reverse order with the trans thing, can I, it's a dick move to ask you this, but can I ask you to define a woman? Is that okay?
Yeah, so listen, I mean, I did a whole thing with this right-wing guy named Michael Knowles.
See, he can't do it. He's got to start going off on a tangent.
A little while ago, where, we were talking about the definition of a woman, and the context was the Ketanji Brown Jackson hearings and her refusal to answer. And there I argued that makes perfect sense because they're asking in a legal context, the question is who can bring a discrimination lawsuit on the basis of gender? And I thought she was right not to answer it. And I made the point that depending on where you're asking the question, the answer could actually be different. Now,
of course, it's all about the context, man. It's all relative. It's all relativistic, and it's all about the context. He still hasn't answered the question.
I'm glad to give my view of this socially, if that's okay.
Sure.
Yeah, of course. Go for it.
This is, again, and the problem with this, and I know you guys would never do this because you seem so honest. The problem is that sometimes this question is then used to put someone in a corner. So I will say in advance that the definition I have will not work in every setting, okay? Like, for example, the definition...
If it's a definition that doesn't work in every setting, it doesn't really sound like a definition to me.
The definition I have in an OBGYN's office may not work because we recognize biological differences, right? But for me, the broadest way where I think about who am I going to relate to as a woman, it would be somebody who I identify as deliberately trying to exist in the world as a woman.
What on earth does that even mean? What on earth does that even mean? Someone who I identify as trying to exist, excuse me, in the world primarily as a woman. How do you get your... I mean, this is what happens when you live a lie, yeah? There's reality, and then there's like liberalism. Reality by definition is conservative, as far as I'm concerned. It is traditional. Reality always wins out. But yeah, you can invert things and lie about things and say up is down and down is up, and black is white and white is black, and men are women and women are men. You can say that. You can even get away with it for a while, and you can rearrange things in your life, and you can force society to rearrange things so that it accommodates these inversions and these lies. But at the end of the day, reality always wins out, and hopefully it's going to start winning out soon.
And so, if I see a biological man who... And again, we have to talk about this in candid ways, which some people might not like, but I think it's necessary. If I see me with a wig on, it's not going to be apparent to me that that's someone who is necessarily trying to exist in the world as a woman if they go by the name David and their voice is like mine and they dress like me. So I'm just going to make the best faith effort I can, where if it's indicated through a number of different cues that someone is trying to exist in the world as a woman, I'll relate to them as a woman. That's fine. It just doesn't bother me.
Well, what does it mean to relate to somebody as a woman? Do you relate to somebody as a woman differently than how you relate to them as a man, David? Does that mean suddenly, well, since that's a woman, maybe there's a chance I might be attracted to that person because that person goes through life, what did he say? Presents herself, or himself, herself, their self as a woman in society? This nonsense is just mind-numbing.
Oh, sure. And in fact, I am kind of where you are in the sense that we've had a shit ton of trans people on the show, and we call them by whatever name they have and the pronouns that they've chosen, right?
Yeah, that's a different thing. At a personal level, I don't think most people, I don't have a problem with anybody. If somebody like any of these three men on the screen here comes up, is introduced to me as Jane, or Jennifer or something like an obviously female name, and says, yeah, I identify as a woman, I would say, well, okay, fine. At a personal level, not many people really care. I don't think it's a lot of people, and this is perhaps a problem with conservative types. There's sort of if you're like a conservative, slightly libertarian leaning like me, it's like live and let live. That whole idea. But live and let live, the problem is people will keep pushing until we arrive at a place like today, where the whole gender nonsense and trans nonsense is taking over and imposing itself on society as a whole.
I've got no issue with that.
Sure.
However, my issue is that and again, this is me being straight with you. I hope you don't take offense to what I'm saying.
Please.
In your refusal to give a definition that is equally applicable in different circumstances, you're kind of avoiding the difficult elements of this, right?
Well,
yes, because there's nothing difficult about it, but she still has to avoid it.
difficult elements are exactly that. Which, sorry, I interrupted. Go ahead.
I know you know where I'm going, but let me just give the example so people know what we're talking about. So we have a number of cases here in the UK, for example, and I know you've had some in the US as well, where a trans woman who still has a male anatomy has been housed in a female prison and has gone on to commit sexual assault against women in prison, right?
Okay.
We obviously have had trans women in female sports, where they, in my opinion, have an unfair advantage. And there are other situations in which our failure to give a clear, universal definition means that women, in particular, in this very instance, are suffering the consequences of our social unwillingness to be quite hardline about it. Would you agree with that?
Well, that's what in a court they would say that's a compound question, and we've really got to break down each of those, because whether I agree with everything you said, I don't know. So let's I'm not even sure where to start. So okay. I mean, in prison, there was a sexual assault by a biological male housed with women. Okay, I don't know the story. We have a country of 331 million in the United States, so you can find examples sort of everything. Sexual assault by biological females of other females in American prisons is really common. So for me, what I go to is less about, trans people, I think, are 1/3 of 1% of the population in the US. I may be slightly off about that, but let's use that as a working number. For me, every assault is bad.
Sure.
And the bigger issue is American prisons are terrible at keeping inmates safe.
Amazing. He's already diverting and deflecting to a completely different issue. Yeah, prison sucks, man. And yeah, if you're in a serious prison, yeah, you got, it's hard if you're in one of these federal prisons in the States. I have no idea what prisons are like here in Belgium, but I'm sure it's not pretty. And did you catch what he said? That approximately 1/3 of 1% of the population in the States is trans. That's already huge. That must be a massive upswing from, say, 20 years ago or 10 years ago. But anyway, so he says that to say that that's a very, very small percentage, which it is. So then how is it that this whole issue has become such an issue? How has it become such a big social, political, cultural issue? That's what we have to ask ourselves. Somebody or some group of people are pushing it. And it's not all the trans people either. A lot of them are probably outraged. They don't want to be seen as these hideous activists. They want to get on with their lives. But, I mean, basically, you have to have sort of standards in society. And the standard in Western society for centuries and millennia has been, the family is the basic unit. A man, woman, they have children. Their children have children and all this. That is the basic unit, Gay marriages and trans people, and then, gay people adopting trans people, marrying other trans people or whatever and having children. That's not the standard, and it shouldn't be. It doesn't mean you should discriminate against them per se or oppress them, but to pretend that it is the norm is ludicrous.
And I apply that to men's prisons and women's prisons.
Sure, but you're deflecting here, aren't you?
I don't think. And so, but let me go further.
Let me give you the reverse of your argument, right?
No, but I wasn't even done.
Cops shooting black people is bad, but the real problem is something else, and we shouldn't talk about the cops shooting black people.
That's not the argument I'm making whatsoever.
Okay, sure, go ahead. Sorry.
So the point that I'm making is because what you're saying I guess it depends on what you say the other issue really is. You didn't get to the end of that, and so I don't know
black crime. That's the right-wing argument. Black on black crime is the real thing. Forget about cops shooting black people.
Right, but those are totally different things. What I'm saying is violence in prison is a major problem, and I don't deny that an added layer of complexity is in which prison should a trans person be. I don't pretend to have the answer in all cases. I don't pretend to have the answer. I'm conceding it's very complicated.
You don't pretend to have the answer. No, it's actually very simple. But of course, David Pakman still hasn't answered the question of what a woman is. It's absolute nonsense. Let me know what you guys think about all this in the comments. It really helps with the algorithm. Also, like and subscribe. That also helps with the algorithm. And it helps me continue growing the channel and making content for you.